Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? Welcome to Street Apologists Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. This is a Christian urban apologetics program, and we aim to serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. That's right. So how y'all doing? Come on in. What's up, everybody? We got the Dobercam in effect, and it's raining here in Phoenix, believe it or not. And so the Doberman is taking a little sleep in the rain, you know. And listen, sometimes when the weather gets bad in the studio, sometimes the internet goes out and stuff. And I only have limited backup, so basically the show will probably turn off. Hopefully it doesn't happen tonight. But we'll find out. You never know, because it does happen. Anyways, today we're doing one of these kind of interviews, these diagnostic kind of get-to-know-you sessions. We ask people biography and theology questions. So on these types of programs, my job's not to debate. My job's not to ask every question I could. My job's not to just be controversial. The way I view my role in this is to try to broaden your horizons as you see the scope or panorama of different religious viewpoints or whatnot. Obviously, I'm a Christian apologist, and I have views, and we will talk about stuff, but that's not the main type of aim, is to, have a head-butting thing, a little bit more relaxed. So, we got the coffee, and how you doing out there? Welcome all the way from Japan, Judah Natzarah of the Torah Kinghts. How you doing? Welcome to the program. What's going on? Salute, salute, salute.
Thank you for having me on today. Thank you, Vocab. It's been a long time. Supposed to have me on months ago.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess you're a busy man over there. I mean, you are halfway across the world, right?
Yeah, about to have my fourth child. Yes.
So, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm like a sharpshooter, man. I can't miss. So, ladies, you guys having problems? Hit up Judah Natzarah. I'm joking.
Does your wife watch this program? Does she watch your interviews?
Yeah, all the ladies, she's fine with it. She knows the ladies, she's okay.
Are you one of those multiple wives Hebrew Israelites?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
And your wife knows this?
Yeah.
So married to one, but then allowed to have, how does it work in your...
Well, so it would be not like a girlfriend or nothing like that. It would have to be like a second wife. I can't just have like a side piece without my wife, knowing, eyes, she knows, she watches. Everyone knows, the Japanese woman, my wife, everyone knows who she is. She don't put up with a lot of stuff. So Judah's not going to be doing no funny business.
Oh, so what's the difference between like an open marriage and that form of polygamy? What's the difference?
I'm not sure, but I think open marriage is like the couples can go off and just do things.
Oh, okay. So it has to be the no. Okay. So yours would be more like you're looking for a throuple?
I never heard that, but that's yeah.
All right. Well, I didn't know we were going to start that way, but since the first thing you said out the gate was a little, whoa. Okay, well, tell people who you are as best you can, and then we'll get into some biographical questions, because I want audiences to get to know the different debaters and prognosticators across the urban apologetic landscape, and you're definitely one of them. So help us understand who you are.
All right. I'm a Judah Natzarah. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, okay. I'm from Columbus.
Yes. Somebody told me that. Yes. Dangerous place where he's from. Went to college in Cincinnati.
Oh, so you've been all over the major cities of Ohio.
Yeah. I lived in Ashtabula, Minter, Lorraine, Euclid. I was everywhere.
I love Cincinnati. I think it's a great city, beautiful city.
Well, my roommates got beat up by the football players. I was probably $135 fresh out of high school. So Cincinnati's rough, but I'm also
Cleveland kind of rough too. At least the time I was coming up.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, yes.
Columbus got its spots as well.
Yes, it does. There's some horror stories where we were like, "What?"
Oh,
So yeah,
you ever been to Columbus?
yeah. We would go down there. My friends went to Ohio State, Ohio University, so we were always down there. But then one of my friends almost got executed in his apartment, so we don't go there anymore.
One of your friends almost wait. One of your friends almost got executed in his apartment in Columbus.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, I guess we'll have to maybe share that story another time. But well, okay. So we got some mutual ties. I imagine we're both Generation Xers. I can kind of guess that.
Yeah, 148. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So from Ohio to Japan, what happened in between there?
No. So actually, from Ohio, I moved to Oregon when I
Mm.
was like a child. I was there for like 7 years, like the various cities: Portland, Salem, McMinnville, all throughout there. Then we moved to Boston, so I was there for a few years. Then I moved back to New York. I actually lived in New York several times. I moved to New York several times. I got family there, so I'm from New York. Then I moved to Indiana, East Chicago, St. Louis, Canada, Nova Scotia, Canada, and Japan. So I just travel all over.
Was one of your parents in the military, brother?
No, we're just like vagabonds.
There's just no good reason, huh? Well, someone in the live chat, Jimmy says, I like Judah's spectacles.
Thank you. These are actually prescription. They are not sunglasses.
Okay. Prescription.
Yes, yes.
All right, man. Okay, so your family, Christians, evangelicals, Pentecostals?
So on my father's side, they were Baptist, or they're Baptist.
Progressive Baptist, American Baptist? Do you know what kind?
Oh, the Greater Baptist Church of Ebenezer, Black Christian church.
Are they part of the national convention? There's a lot of Baptist churches, but okay, go ahead. And then on your mom's side, what about that?
So my mother's Puerto Rican, and her name is Saint Teresa. So I'm not sure if she's holding on to her Catholic thing, but it doesn't really seem like it. Seems like she's more in line with Protestant Christianity at this point.
But your mom was raised Catholic?
Well, her father is, but he died. But the mother and them were like, well, if you call drinking a fifth of Jack Daniels religious, this is, Now my mom just believes in Jesus. I don't think she's like necessarily particular about denomination.
Oh, okay. What do they think of your current religious track that you're on? Your parents, if I may ask.
So my mom actually used to date a guy from the ISUPK, so she's been known.
Your mom dated a guy from the ISUPK?
Yeah.
Did that leave a positive or a negative taste in your mouth about the UPK?
I mean, I've known him since I was like 10, so he, it's fine. She doesn't agree with him. My mother's a little. If y'all see how I am, I get it from my mom. So, but
Wait. Are you implying you're saying your mother is mentally off kilter and you inherited the trait?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you can have a sense of humor about it. So, did you ever debate this UPK guy? Did you ever debate him or what? Talk theology is what I mean.
All One West camps minus Sakari are all afraid of the Torah Knights. They would never debate. They don't believe in what they teach, and so we don't really pay them much attention.
So all the One West camps are afraid to debate you except for Sakari?
Yes.
So you've debated Sakari then, I presume?
Yeah. We used to go back at it back in, what was it, like 10 years ago, back in like 2013. We would always kind of go back and forth with the scriptures, and then it would get kind of personal, but, we kind of chilled out on that and just kept it scriptural. And we're still cool to this day, like Torah Knight, Sakari. We actually have members that were about to join Sakari, but then wound up joining Torah Knights. So we have this like little history with us.
It seems like your beliefs would be a lot different than theirs, though.
I like to say that Sakari is like a mix between Torah Knights and One West combined.
Really? What would make you say that? Because in Torah Knights, you've got Tanakh only people plus people who believe in the New Testament, right?
Yes.
So you're kind of ecumenical that way.
I mean, as long as they know that the commandments are the foundation, if they believe that Jesus is the Messiah and Savior, you're not going to get them off of that. So there's no point in arguing all day. We did that. You remember Vocab? You know me for years before I had the grays in my chinny chin chin.
Right.
You know what I was doing at the One West camps, lining up their teachings with the Torah and the prophets and showing that I don't know where they're getting their doctrines from, but it ain't from the God. So, but the reason why I say that though is because they do. Like I'm not when I say this One West, I'm not castigating you guys or talking down. Even though you guys talk crazy about us, I'm not going to be wicked. Sakari will say some things that necessarily One West will say, that's you're going off. Oh, that's not what the elders taught. They actually push it a little further, and some of their doctrines are very much akin to Torah night doctrines. So shout out to them.
Now, you used to seem a lot more hostile when you would speak about Jesus. You seem like you've calmed down a little bit off that. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're right. My
happened?
wife.
What happened there?
I think me reading the New Testament a lot more and studying it and studying Jesus' teachings, I'm like, well, this guy's actually teaching the Torah. And a lot of his teachings are based on Isaiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, things like that, right? And I'm like, well, he's telling, Mark 12, good master, what's the greatest commandment? When I read that, I'm like, oh, well, shoot, what he's telling me to do exactly what I'm doing. So I'm like, well, let me lay off of it. Now, I do make a distinction between the people who make a difference, because a lot of Christians, like my mother, she don't read Jesus's words. She goes to church and listens to the preacher. So I make that differentiation.
So you were sort of against Jesus until you read some of the New Testament.
Yes.
So would you see him as a prophet?
Yes.
True prophet or false prophet?
A true prophet. He says some things about Gog and Magog from Ezekiel 38 and 39. A lot of Christians in One West, they think he's talking about 70 AD. He's not talking about. He's talking about Gog and Magog when the nations surround, pray your flight not be in the winter, or woe to those women with child. That's talking about the Gog and Magog, not 70 AD. So I'm like, whoa, like this guy's deep.
Well, yeah, I've definitely understood him to be talking about the Roman armies of 70 AD, especially like in the parable of Matthew 22, where they don't want to come to the wedding feast in the parable for the king's son. And then they even kill some of the servants, in the parable that would be understood to be like the messengers of Yahweh, the prophets or something. And then the king sends an army to destroy, to burn. It says in the text, is to burn the city. And to me, that always made a lot of sense to see that as Rome. Do you think it could be both 70 AD and your Gog and Magog?
It's really funny you say that, because as you started like talking, I was like, maybe that's a dual prophecy. Because there are a lot of dual prophecies of, I'll give you an example. Sometimes you'll see like Antiochus Epiphanes, from the book of Daniel.
Yeah, Antiochus Epiphanes went into the temple and desecrated it. Nasty guy.
But a lot of times, if you start to break down we don't use the word Hebrew, but for this show, when you break it down the Hebrew and you do the compare, contrast, you're like, man, this is kind of like a double prophecy, because it was Antiochus Epiphanes. Even the what's the guy's name? Sennacherib from the Assyrian king.
Okay, yeah. Now you're going back, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of that is kind of mixed in with the Gog and Magog thing, which is like a major event that's going to happen in the future.
So Gog and Magog is very important for your theology of the future, I see.
Yes.
Do you believe Gog and Magog represents Russia?
Yes. Well, not all Russia, but Russia will lead. Yeah.
Say what?
Russia will lead it.
Russia will lead it, but there'll be a coalition?
Yeah, so-called Africans, a bunch of people will be joined up with them.
So-called Africans. Do you think Africans are Hamites?
Not all.
Do you think some are Judahites?
A few of them are Israelites or Shemites. Well, let me rephrase that. A few of them are Israelites over there. We have a lot of Shemites over there, but mostly Ham. Hamites.
Do you believe you're from the tribe of Judah? I would imagine so because of your name.
Well, so my name actually is Mazarach Natzarah, but I put Judah so they know that Southern Kingdom. So I don't do the. I'm from the tribe of Judah. I adhere to the Levitical thing, whatever, but I'm not going to come out and stake or claim tribes that I don't know. So I don't do.
So you would say you know you're from the Southern Kingdom, but you're not sure which one.
Yes, hopefully not Benjamin.
You don't want to be Benjamin? Why not?
One West, don't get angry at me, but in the Torah, they're called, at a point in time, they were called the Bani Baal, the sons of the devil. And maybe they got absorbed into the tribe of Judah because they were very few in number. But Benjamin hasn't had a very good reputation in the Torah and prophets.
So you're hoping you're Judah?
Levi, actually.
Oh, you're hoping you're Levi?
Yes.
So would that make you a priest?
No, we don't have any priests.
Should you have priests?
No.
Will there be priests again in the future?
Yes, in the kingdom, yes.
Offer sacrifices at a third temple and all that?
Yes.
Well, you know what most Christians say, huh? No sacrifices needed. Jesus done did the job. Book of Hebrews in the house.
Listen, I always listen. Christians out there, don't get angry at me. Last night we had brothers on our channel who were New Testament brothers, and I forgot who it was. It was a Christian, and I asked him. Oh, I'm sorry. There was another fella's channel I was on, and there was Christians on there, and I asked him about Hebrews 10 and 10, and then they were like, "Yeah, that's true." So then I went to Ezekiel 45, and they were like confounded, and then the guy doesn't want me over there anymore.
Confounded. Now you are talking like a one Wester.
Why you say that?
Because one Westers love that phrase, confounded. Haven't you ever noticed that? Brothers, confounded. They love that phrase. That's an old one Wester phrase. Like, it's like a common. I know it's in the scripture. I understand that, but I'm saying they've really picked it up and used it all the way back from the 70s. They love to talk about people being confounded. I never heard the word confounded so much until I started dealing with one Wester.
You know what? One West. First, I gotta say this. Tazariak, you lost that debate. You lost. And the reason why I'm saying that is because last night on my channel, you can go back, the book of Matthew and the book of Luke, and we went into the Greek. It states that Mary was found with child before, right? And then it goes on later on. It says Joseph knew her not until
Amen.
We went into the Greek and everything. And we had a New Testament brother. He was like, "That's not true." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go to the book of Luke." And it said the same thing. It said, "The Holy Spirit shall overshadow you, Mary." And we went into the Greek. Shout out to Rob Rack. And again, I'm sorry to use the word confounded.
Oh, we don't mind. I think it's funny. We like it. So this is interesting. You're out here proclaiming the virgin conception of Jesus in the New Testament, and you got guys who say they believe in the New Testament who are denying the virgin conception of Jesus.
Very strange.
Seems ironic. But I understand you're saying the text reports that, and we agree on that. It is clear in the English. It's super clear in the Greek. It's essentially unavoidable. No one that is reading honestly and without the one West blinders on could see it any other ways. But do you believe Jesus was born of a virgin yourself, or do you just think the New Testament reports it?
So, because I had the earliest at the Codex Sinaiticus, no, I don't believe that Jesus is born of a virgin. But that's what the New Testament purports. So I'm just going by what the book says.
Gotcha.
That's what it says.
I understand. Well, hopefully, you've altered in some ways positively your theology, and hopefully it gets altered a little bit more. Ephraim Joestar says, "Amazing these days we're living in. How a staunch critic of the New Testament and denier of Christ can be accepted as a cool guest to have on one's platform." So let me talk to Ephraim for a second, and then I'll let you talk to him. So, Ephraim, I actually understand if you feel that way. Understand, when I have a guy on or a gal on that I disagree with, I don't deny the disagreements. But I also believe that people who disagree don't have to hate each other. They don't have to be vociferous. They don't have to be vicious, acrimonious, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't have to happen, the negative stuff. A lot of times it does, and that's how people are. I get it, whatever. But my view is not that. There's times to stand up and go hard, but there's also times to just chill and relax and have these dialogues. I believe. Now, not all people believe that, and I understand that. But if you've watched this channel, Ephraim, and you probably haven't, I've had a crap ton of people on here I've disagreed with. A lot. Sometimes to debate, sometimes just to talk, sometimes just to let them hear their viewpoint. Because my view also is we can hear different viewpoints, we can air it out and all that. So, yes, he does not believe that Jesus Christ is who he portrays is in the New Testament, although he affirms some things that the New Testament teaches, or at least affirms that it teaches that. It's true he's a critic of the New Testament. I don't think he's as bad as he used to be, if you want to use that term. So that's true. But just understand that. Now, I don't know if you want to respond to Ephraim. I don't really mind his comments fine, but what do you think?
You know what? Because actually, Vocab was in my chat several weeks ago, and he could have came up and like spoke, but I think someone blocked you or something. If you're blocked, I'll unblock you. So it's the same way. It's kind of like what Vocab said. And matter of fact, if Vocab's a witness to this, there was one time Vocab came on my channel. He was with a Latino brother.
Alberto, that's my homie Alberto, yeah.
And I did something I shouldn't have done. I acted like I was wiping my backside with the New Testament. And Vocab got heated, which he should have. Just like anybody shoots the Bible, it's sacrilegious. You're not supposed to do that, right? And people start cheering me on. Yeah, Judah. And my grandmother died in like 2007. But I kept hearing this like voice, like, boy, I can imagine the frying pan flying across the room. Her big white Bible flying across the room to hit me in the head. And I hit up Vocab, and I was like, I apologize. Like, and then do you remember that, Vocab?
That is true. That is true that you did that. That is true. And here, applause for that. Praise God for your grandma and her big Bible and her frying pan.
Yeah, Emma Bergen. Yeah, she's definitely rest in peace, my grandmother. But I was like, if you can't do it in front of your grandmother, don't do it. So I was like, you know what? I felt ashamed, and I apologize. Vocab still didn't. He didn't say, you know what, you're forgiven. He still ignored me for like years. But
well, here we are, and even though I've thought at times you've been one of the more wild kind of guys with antics, you've never struck me as racist, though. Interestingly enough, like you've definitely been wild and whatnot and antics, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh. But you never really come across as a bigoted person to me. You always seemed like you never made that one of the issues, which I did appreciate. Even when you were acting wild, I was like, well, at least he's not making it racial. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, everybody gets it in Torah nights. So-called blacks, so-called whites. Everybody gets it. There's no, and I'm mixed. I'm black and Puerto Rican, so of course I have white in me. I have white aunts, uncles, and I'm quite sure they, all that, racism is not going to pop. And you know what? My wife actually got me, I went through a lot of time. I got stabbed multiple times by white supremacists.
You got stabbed by a white supremacist?
Like 8, yeah, back in Kent State in Ohio. Almost died.
Kent State.
Yeah.
My goodness, so this is like real life higher learning situation.
Yeah. I got stabbed like 14, 15 times. So, and I went through a lot of stuff, growing up, with racism, things like that. So I did have a lot of hate in my heart. And my wife looked at me and she was like, hey, man, you need to like chill out with the hate. And I kind of like looked at her like, what? But then, I don't know, man, like my wife says things and it takes a little bit, but then I reflect on it and I'm like, you know what? This is a lot of energy for hate. Like it's a lot. It takes energy to hate. Because hate's an action. So,
Sounds like your wife has been a positive influence on you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sorry for the noise. Someone gave she's a therapist, you said?
Yes. So she's helped me with my insanity.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, the way we do it is whenever someone gives a super chat, we give a super snack on the Dober cam. So, Adrian, there you go. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's that's how we do it there. So someone asks, are there Hebrew Israelites in Japan?
Oh my goodness, great question. One of our biggest enemies, IUIC, is here in Japan.
Wait, what? Where? Tokyo or other places?
Yeah, they're in Tokyo and they're in Osaka, which is like on the other side of Japan. And they
There's
come
two?
to Tokyo for the Black and Hispanic festivals we have here. They come here and they, the reason why they're enemies is because their leader tried to infiltrate Torah Knights using a former member, and I'll never forgive them for that.
So IUIC has two camps in Japan?
Maybe I know one specifically, IUIC Japan, and there might be another one because they do like their holy days, which I don't know why Hebrew Israel. Remember, I'm not a Hebrew Israelite. I don't know why Hebrew Israelites practice holy days of the Bible when we're not supposed to. So they do have groups here in Japan.
My goodness. So have you dealt with them out there in Japan, these IUIC guys? Like, have you interacted with them, I'm saying?
Well, I talked to them on YouTube, but here in person, I'm going to keep it nice, PG. If they start talking crazy, Japanese police love to see fights. So I'll just put it that way.
Huh.
I'm joking, but
I wonder who they are drawing from. Or like their military bases around there, or what's going on?
not in Okinawa. So, no, I'm sorry, not Okinawa. I'm sorry. Osaka is on the far other side, but in Okinawa they do have military bases. It's like in the south in Japan, they have military bases there.
Because did you see any IUIC guys in those camps that look like Ammonites?
No,
did any of them look Japanese? Is what I'm saying.
Oh, not at all. No. So they talk to what they call hafu, which is like half so-called blacks and half Japanese. So they target them and they target Latinos here in Japan.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Good question, James G. Alunka says this guy was in a camp. Were you ever in a camp?
Never. I never heard of a Hebrew Israelite or a camp until I moved to Japan in 2008, 2007.
Okay. So were you more on the Hebrew roots tip then?
No, Israelite. So I've been in almost 30 years. So Cleveland's, we have a large Rasta and Israelite, not large, nice sizable community of Israelites and Rastas and stuff like whatever. So we were just Israelites. I had never heard of a Hebrew Israelite or a camp and I was quite surprised when I moved to Japan. I remember being in Indiana and there was a Jewish guy and he was like, "Are you a black Hebrew Israelite?" And I was like, "What's that?" He was like, those guys that stand on the street and yell at people. I had no idea what he was talking about until I moved to Japan and I turned on YouTube. I didn't have internet in Cleveland. I turned on YouTube and I see Ray Millstone. And I'm like, oh, this is what he's talking about. Y'all know the video of the Rasta chick,
Oh, you've seen that video.
That was my first actual video of like seeing like Hebrew Israelite group.
Let me tell you something, man. Someone told me about that video, right? They told me, hey, there's this video. It's like super wild. If you want to see how crazy Tahar acted back in the day, check this video out, right? So I put in the search terms, the title of the video that the person told me. That was the wrong way to do it because it did not bring up that video. It brought up lots of other videos. It was not a good moment. Not a good moment at all because when I did it, I was in a class because sometimes I got bored in class and I was in class, so I searched for it. And anyways, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I'll just leave it there. Yeah. So speaking of that, you yourself used to be Rastafarian?
No. So I appreciated the music and their natural way of living and natural diet and things like that, but as far as like Haile Selassie being God and all that, I'm a fan of him as a world statesman. I learned a lot about geopolitics and things from studying him, but being like an actual Rasta and all that, growing dreadlocks, I never did any of that.
Oh, I never got into that. So more just the music and the culture. Well, there is a People say that some of the first places you started frequenting on the internet were the weed smoking forums.
Really?
I don't know. Is that true? I'm just telling you what people say.
No. I'm
No?
not. In America, I was all about that, but here in Japan, that's not flying. It's like, it's like unaliving somebody here in Japan. I know what you're saying, but it's not. I grew up. I'm almost 50, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. So, would you have ever considered yourself, Judah, a Christian at any point in your life?
No. Even though I did find, so my father was a criminal. He was not anymore. He's 70 something. But my father was a criminal, right? So he ran our house like a prison. And so me growing up, always stressed out and stuff, I would go to Catholic churches and Christian churches just to sit because I felt safe there. Even though I never called myself a Christian, but that was a place for me to go and get away from all the negativity and just sit. I would just sit in a church and just sit there because I felt safe, I guess.
Well, praise God. That's a good testimony. Okay, so I'm listening. Go ahead.
But I never, if someone would have said, "Are you a Christian?" I'd never, even though I went to church all my life as a youth, remember I grew up bad, so there were like, white families that would like take me out of the house to go to church with them to kind of get me away from the madness. So Bible study classes on Sundays. I still remember all the churches and things. I was in foster homes, Jehovah's Witnesses. I've been to that church.
You went to the Watchtower, the Kingdom Hall they have there?
Oh man, yes.
Okay. You remember all the little pictures they had with like a white guy and a black guy eating an apple together, and the new heavens and the new earth sharing an apple?
I had the whole comic book, the JW comic books, they're not comic books, they're pamphlets, but they had illustrations. I had all of them. Not that I was ever into Jehovah's Witnesses, but I've always been into the Bible. Always. So
you remember in Dumb and Dumber, and he's like, he messes up his words, but he says basically like, what are the chances of a guy like me and a girl like you getting together, right?
Yeah.
What are the chances that one day you'll be a New Testament believing Christian?
Man, since I swore an oath to the Most High, probably never.
Oh man, I was gonna say. So you're telling me there's not a chance?
Well, I swore
what do you mean?
oath.
But what do you mean? Hold on, help me understand that though. You swore an oath to the Most High so you can never become a Christian. Tell me what you mean by that.
So this is another story. I'll keep it short. For those of you who don't believe in witches and warlocks, they're real. I'm a witness to it. There was a lady across the street from my grandmother's house that was into witchcraft hardcore. And I'm telling you, this lady put a spell on me, and I like had this like weird dream vision thing where I don't want to say I saw a demon with my visual, but it was like, it's hard to explain. Let's just say the next day I woke up, I was shivering and I wasn't right for like 2 years. And I would think about evil things. I'm talking like extremely evil things that were not, I'm like, this isn't even me. It would be just the most ridiculous, foolish, evil things. It was just nonstop. So I was like, I became suicidal. And,
how old were you at this time?
About 20.
Okay, so suicidal at 20, and then what happened?
So I was like, well, I can't live like this. I'm not going to live like this the rest of my life. And so, like, I always believed in God, but I felt like, I don't know. I was calling hotlines, therapists. They were like, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, oh, no, there's something wrong with me. Like, I'm talking repeated, this, not a voice, not an audible voice. It's like a whisper almost. And it's like, I don't know, repeat the evil stuff it was telling me to do, but it's completely evil. Things that don't make any sense. These demons, they don't stop. They never stop. They torment you.
So you felt like maybe you're being tormented in some way by demonic powers at this time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I was like, I was like, the last ditch effort was to fall on my knees. And I said, I promise to serve you all my days if you can get this off me. And sure enough, he lifted it off me for like a little bit, though. It was like a little test, like, okay, I'm lifted off you, give you some reprieve. Then we're going to see what you do, young man. See if you go slip back into foolishness. And he lifted it from me, and I felt relief for the first time in like a couple of years. And I was like, yo, if I can continue feeling like this, I'm going to serve the Most High forever. And I've been on my journey ever since.
All right.
Like hardcore.
Why do you hold that oath or promise to essentially dedicate yourself to God? Why do you hold that is contradictory towards being a disciple of Jesus? Because one thing I'll just mention real quick, if you do read the Old and New Testaments together and you see Jesus coming in the power of the Spirit and as a prophet, one interesting thing is you'll see miraculous acts, obviously, in the Old Testament. But really, it's not always as frequent as many people think. You know, it's not like it was happening nonstop. But when you get to the ministry of Jesus, he's doing the same kind of Old Testament miracles, but at a much greater clip, especially when it comes to casting out powers, dark powers, wicked powers, right? And it's a kind of a key mark. And he would say, hey, this is how you know the kingdom is upon you. I guess the reason why I say that is, you know, if Jesus is a prophet, he's really shown when you put the Bible together as the one who's casting out the most demons. You know, think about the Old Testament prophets. That wasn't really a major part of their ministry, that kind of thing, right? But in the days of Jesus, you see it extraordinarily happen. What if it's been Jesus all along? You don't think that's possible?
Well, I asked the Most High for his name. And
Okay.
the name I got was Yahweh. People, you guys think I got it from One West. No, this is you know, don't get me wrong, I was still saying Yahweh. But when I would like study, it would be like Yahweh. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is it like right? But was it Jesus?
Well, I don't necessarily mean the English. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you. What'd you say?
Well, what if it was Jesus? I guess I'll have to wait until I'm dead to find that out.
We don't want you to have to wait that long. I'm just saying, if Jesus is a continuation of the Old Testament prophets and fulfillment, and when you look at his ministry, he is at just really at an exponential level casting out dark powers and demon. That's not really a hallmark element of any of the Old Testament prophets, right? God used them to do miraculous things. I mean, you have raisings from the dead in the Old Testament, right? Of course. You know, Elijah with one, Elisha with two, other things like that. Because the second one was when he was dead. Obviously, it's the Lord doing it. But you look at that, and then you get to Jesus, and you see Jesus just all over. It's a key thing, you know. People are bringing him children who are having different kind of issues. Or remember that one child was throwing himself into the fire, the text said. And Jesus healed the boy. And it continued on in the life of his disciples in the book of Acts, such as the girl who is a fortune teller, a slave girl, and she was following Paul around, and Paul casts the demon out of her, and all kind. You know, you see all these things, and you just when I hear you tell the story, I just wonder if it was maybe here's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you have to think so hard or like it's a contradiction to think God of the Tanakh, God of the Old Testament, and Jesus, because you said you couldn't become a Christian because you made an oath to God. But what if those aren't two different things? Is all I'm trying to say. You know, just something to consider, I guess.
It's an interesting suggestion, but there would be a lot of still a lot more questions that would need to be like, you know, I mean, because I think so. I used to go to this church in Euclid. For those of you in Cleveland, you know, I'm not sure if my grandmother's Reverend Banks. I would sit for hours talking to this reverend, and I'd read the Bible. I always read the Bible, and I would ask him questions, and he would say things like, "I don't know," and I would kind of be frustrated. I'm like, "Yo, like my grandmother pays you like weekly from the collections. You can't even give her grandson like a answer to a question." Like, and of course, he would just say, "Young man, don't disrespect me," and I'm like, "Okay, I can't find the answer." So I was younger, teens back then, but
Sounds like he probably just didn't know, to be honest. You know?
That's true too. Yeah. Well, so let me ask a question. Let me ask a question.
Sure.
So you believe Jesus is God?
Yes, I believe he's to be identified with the God of the Old Testament. Yahweh embodied in essence. But of course, that comes into another discussion, which is the tri-personal nature of the one true God, which would be something I believe we would not be agreeing upon. Meaning, it's not like Jesus is God and he's different than the God of the Old Testament. It's that the God of the Old Testament is more fully revealing himself in the New Testament as being tri-personal, as you see the Son, and then, of course, later on, the Holy Spirit. But yet the Bible's still saying there's only one God. Because the Trinity is not that there's three God. It's that the one true God exists in three distinct co-eternal persons. So yeah, Jesus is fully God. So when I say Jesus is God, I don't mean it like a camper. Because the campers will sometimes say Jesus is God, but what they'll say is, if you talk to them more in depth, they mean it like he's a God, like all black men are gods or all Israelites are gods. And they'll point to maybe Psalm 82, for example, right? That's not what we mean. We're not just saying Jesus is the greatest or the first creation. That's a Jehovah's Witness thing, which really goes back to an ancient heresy called Arianism, not with a Y, but with an I after Arius, of course.
Yeah.
And all we're saying is, look, we want to be like the first Christians. They were Jewish. They believe the Old Testament. They never dropped their belief in only one God. But you also have the reality that in the New Testament, there's someone called the Son and someone called the Spirit who are clearly portrayed in terms that are only fitting for Yahweh. So if you really study the early Christian thought, like how did they get to this point of the Trinity? People make up rumors and sort of fairy tales about how it got invented or something. But the reality is, and you can read the literature, it was a struggle. It was, okay, we believe in one God, but yet three persons are called God. And it took a while for them to come up with the term persons, because they had, how do we describe three different realities here, but yet one true God? Because we can't drop monotheism, because that'd be denying the Old Testament. We're not going to deny everything that we know. So how does that work? And part of that reality is that Jesus is, yes, the Messiah. Jesus is, yes, a prophet. But Jesus is also God. So he exceeds or excels that. So he's uncreated. And I understand it's a radical proposition. But if you look at a lot of the arguments that Jesus had with the religious leaders of his day, Judah, yeah, they argued about the Sabbath, right? They argued about different elements of the law, true. But a lot of their arguments were really about, who are you saying you are, guy? And they understood in some way he was claiming to be something more than a man. I'm not saying they understood everything 100%, but especially the religious leaders understood, like if you read John 5, if you read John 8, they're like, who are you saying you are? Because Jesus was making very lofty claims, something that a mere creature could not make. So, yes, Jesus is God. And that's why Christians worship him. You know, if you read the New Testament, you'll find he's worshipped at the end of Matthew. He's worshipped in the book of Revelation. He's worshipped all throughout the New Testament. And if he's merely a creature, like if he's the first created being or something like that, which some people try to push, he's not worthy of worship. We say he's not worthy of worship then, but he is. So that's a challenge, say, if I talk to one of my Jewish friends. To them, they're like, that looks an awful lot like idolatry, vocab. That's their perspective, and I understand that, and so we talk about it, because they understand us to be essentially worshiping a man. To them, they're like, well, is this just idolatry? If Jesus is not God, it is idolatry. If Jesus is God, it's proper worship. It's just God has revealed himself in a more full way now in the New Testament. Does that help a little bit? Maybe you knew all that already, but does that make sense, that perspective?
Well, I knew that. But so that goes back to the would I ever be a Christian thing. So if let's say that I considered we'd have to have the Shabbat on the seventh day. We have to keep the Torah. Well, like kind of like James in Acts 21. You know, they were all zealous for the Torah, but yet they were believers in Yahushua, Joshua, not Yahushai. That's a totally erroneous pronunciation. Sorry, One West, y'all need to go back and study that.
Well, so wait, you're with Yahweh, but not with Yahushai.
You mean James?
Huh?
You mean James?
Oh, I thought you were using that name for When you said, huh?
I was saying Yahweh Shai is an erroneous pronunciation.
Yes, it is. Because you don't believe in Lashwan Kodash, but Yahweh. So you think Yahweh is right, but not Yahweh Shai?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you take so when you say he, you would say yeah, right? And this, you could use like Eve's name, and I'll use the word Hebrew, Chawa, right? Which just means life, living. So the Hiye, Hawe, Hawa, Kaya are all like, related words meaning like life. So if you go into even the Arabic, if you put up, how do you say Eve's name in Arabic? It's going to say Hawa. And sometimes they replace the H with a H. So Hawa. But as far as the Yahweh Shai, that Shai, that's ridiculous. They're getting that from Greek. I think, not sure, they might be getting it from the iota. I know you know Greek better than I do.
Well, they've Ariya's Lashon Kodash eliminates the vowel sounds except for the saying ah, and in some cases I. That's what it does. Real quick though, we got 2 more super chats. Thank you, Tony Tabano, for the super chat. So that means the dog gets a super snack. Adrian, there's one. And also, we got one other one. I appreciate all you guys, by the way, coming through. Please hit the like button. And if you're interested in what Judah does, you got to be warned. It's a little bit different on his channel than this stuff right here. But can you tell people how to subscribe to you? As long as they're warned, they'll know what you do. But tell them how to find you online. Here you
yes.
Go,
so you can find me on just Judah Natzarah, Judah, Natzarah, Natzarah, which I'm named after the Most High. It's in the book of Isaiah. He says, Ani Yahweh Natzarah. Anyway, someone said I'm not the Lamb of God. Yes, I am, young man. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but that's, I also a backup channel called Judah Natzarah Messiah. Don't get triggered. Messiah for us just means a devoted one to the Torah, not.
So you would say, because we talked about this Sunday, there's lots of Messiahs.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so putting it all together, you feel like your thoughts about, do you think it's impossible for Jesus? I would say Yeshua, you could use whatever term you'd want. I'm okay with it. I'm not as big as sticking on certain terms. I think as long as we're know kind of who we're talking about, basically, I think, But would you say it's impossible for him to be Yahweh embodied? Is that impossible?
Yes.
Okay, now I hear you, and a lot of people probably would say that. How would you square that with the fact that there seem to be theophanies in the Old Testament?
So in our, I don't know if you guys know this. I'm also a major subscriber to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which we also teach, and we have an angel called the angel Michael, who also has the Most High's name in him, or his authority. So a lot of times when you see like in the book of Zechariah, or when the 3 angels came to visit Abraham, it said that one of them was Yahweh, but it was clearly an angel.
Genesis 19. You're referring to Genesis 19. Okay, go ahead. Just for the audience sake. Sorry, go ahead.
So he holds the Most High's authority. So when you go into the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says the angel Michael will rule over the angels, and Israel rule over mankind. So the angel Michael also carries Yahweh's authority in him. So when you guys said the Theophanies, it's like, well, it's his angel. Angel Michael's like the Optimus Prime of the angels.
Optimus Prime of the angels. Well, there is a Metatron, right?
Yeah, well, that's Satan. Well, Balaal, they call him. Balial.
Well, I'm just saying, Metatron, Megatron. Okay, so you believe that the theophanies in the Old Testament wouldn't actually be theophanies. They're created beings, angels, who are referred to as God because they've been given the authority of God in that situation.
Yes.
Like an ambassador or something like that.
Yes.
So with that, that is very similar, I think, to what some of the Jehovah's Witnesses would say. And I guess it's just like when I see some of these interactions especially with the angel of the Lord, it looks like it exceeds past that. For example, hey, we've just seen God. We should die. Shouldn't we be dead? I think Samson's parents were tripping out like that. The wrestling with Jacob, what's your name all night? And then the name, one translation can be understood for Jacob to be he who wrestles with God. You see that. Then you see there's a Yahweh on heaven and yet a Yahweh on earth in Genesis 19 in the Sodom Gomorrah account. You see all these, the fourth man in the fire. I see one like a son of man in the situation with the 3 Hebrew boys and Nebuchadnezzar. So Christians feel like we're not going crazy when we say that's a very real, just looking at the Old Testament strictly, a very real possibility to understand in some way God being embodied. We understand that it's shocking, but we think that it's not like it's impossible when you read the Old Testament. And then certain messianic prophecies seem to indicate that as well. Like Daniel 9 or Micah 5:2, which has his origins or from old, for example, Isaiah 9:6, things like that. Do you ever debate or look into messianic prophecy about Jesus? Do you think it's all bunk? Do you think it's all wrong? Do you think Christians are misreading the Old Testament in relationship to things like Isaiah 53, Psalm 22? What's your perspective on that these days?
Yes. So a lot of times, being a debater, I would have to learn, of course, Christian doctrine as well. So I'm very familiar with the New Testament, right? We have a lot of brothers and Torah Knights who've never even read the New Testament. But, I'm in it all the time. I have because I have to formulate my arguments, It's mostly against Paul, not against Jesus. I'm sorry, what's your question again? I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you think Christians are off when they point to messianic prophecy being fulfilled in Jesus?
A lot of times I've done a juxtaposition of the New Testament prophecies concerning Jesus and the Torah and the prophets. It always goes back to Israel, but Christians would say, no, it's Jesus, and it goes back, and I'm like, but it clearly says Israel. So I get it. I mean, I get it. Like, we have New Testament brothers. No matter what you say, who's Prince Malek? This guy seems to be a fan of mine.
How you doing, Prince? I think I'm not. Is that Prince Malak? Have we talked before? I'm not sure. Well, so like where it says that he was silent before those who would slaughter him. That doesn't sound like Israel. And when it said that he's sinless and that other people were healed by his stripes, like Isaiah 53. How can Israel pay for other people's sins?
So there's the righteous remnant.
Yeah, but can they atone for the sins of others?
Yeah, they're like it says that they're going to be like an offering to Yahweh. The nations will bring them.
Okay, so if Israel can atone for the sins of others, why would Israel ever need the high priest system with all the sacrifices if they can atone for the sins of others themselves?
Well, remember, the Gentiles themselves will be bringing offerings to the high priest.
So you're talking about in the future, but when do you think Isaiah 53, if you're saying that's Israel atoning for the sins of, or the righteous remnant of Israel atoning for the sins of others, when do you think that would be fulfilled, or has it been fulfilled?
In the future, because the righteous remnant. So remember, if you read, again, this always goes back to One West. I'm not quite sure a lot of One West guys are going to be gritting their dentures, but I'm sorry. They have a doctrine called 2/3, 1/3, but that doesn't happen until the kingdom. That doesn't happen here in America or Japan or whatever. So that 1/3 says will be tried by fire and be refined, right? It's going to be the humble remnant. So when it says
Malachi,
I think it's is that it? Yeah.
Or about the refiner's fires from Malachi. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's the sons of Levi. I'm talking about Zechariah 14.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Okay, I understand. Go ahead. Sorry.
So there's like the righteous remnant that Isaiah 53 is talking about. Now, I would say this. So it's like Judas on his best behavior over here. I don't go to other people's channels and act crazy. Everyone knows that. On my channel, I'm going to act a fool. But on other people's channels, I don't do that. But here's a proposal that I had put forth to people that people are kind of like running a lot from. let's say like Isaiah 53, right? Let's say that I was like, okay, you know what? Isaiah 53 is talking about a man. Let's go with that. So we have this Messiah called Onias III. I'm quite sure you've seen us talk about him.
Yeah, it's kind of a peculiar thing to your group, it seems like.
Well, you see me retire somebody on HOK with that debate. It was Jesus versus Onias.
Who'd you retire?
JJ 6000.
What do you mean you retired him?
He got beat so bad he just quit debating altogether. He don't even believe in the Bible no more.
Wait, did he really drop his belief in the Bible?
He don't teach. He don't do nothing but troll me. Follow me around the internet. That's it.
Hey, well, you had a guy, Chris Harris, who dropped his belief in the Bible.
Now look at him though. He's bugged out of his skull.
Why? What's he doing?
Look at his beliefs. His beliefs are in Egyptian, ancient Egypt, which in the Torah stands for stupidity, spiritual stupidity, idolatry, worship of death, just foolishness, and he's into that. So that's remember he burned the Bible or threw the Bible in the trash.
Oh, he did. One of those polite moves.
Well, you see what happened to Polite too, right? There's another one. There's a woman that burned the Bible. We don't hear from her anymore. She's living an alternative lifestyle, just getting worse and worse. So, but yeah, it is peculiar to the Torah Knights. For those of you who don't know, if you ever had the Dead Sea Scrolls, he's called the teacher of righteousness. He's the guy of Daniel 9 verse 26, the Messiah that was cut off. And so it's kind of hard to, kind of like leave him out and kind of like put Jesus in when this guy was like the high priest and ruler of Israel. And he's attributed titles that are like afforded to King David. It says in the Dead Sea Scrolls that he went up to heaven to join the angels. That he atoned. He died on Yom Kippur. He was murdered on Yom Kippur. It's just a whole bunch of stuff to the point where some people are like, man, his story and Jesus' story are very similar. So I'm like, yeah, it is very uncanny that their stories are very similar. That's why I was talking to you and I was like, yo, man, John the Baptist was preaching near Qumran, near the Dead Sea, or by the Dead Sea. I'm like, could he possibly have been a member of Onias's group?
There have been some scholars who have believed that in some way John the Baptist was affiliated with the Essene community at Qumran. I think it's a minority thesis. I don't know. I haven't sort of checked up on it lately. I don't think that's the case, but even if it was, it wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, be that material, because we know what John the Baptist's primary mission was to pave the way for the Messiah. He's saying. And so that's the thing. If John the Baptist is proclaiming that the one who's going to, because he says, make straight way the pathways of the Lord, right? Which is an interesting thing, because again, that seems to indicate who's this Messiah? Pathways for the Lord, but you're talking about the Messiah, right? And then he says, hey, I shouldn't be baptizing you. But Jesus says, no, we got to fulfill all righteousness. Just saying that, John the Baptist, who said he must increase, I must decrease, he's not pointing to the leader of the Qumran community. He's pointing to Jesus. Unless you think that Jesus was the teacher of righteousness at Qumran.
Definitely no.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think you would think that. But you think Onias III is definitely the teacher of righteousness? I don't know if everyone agrees on that. You think that's for sure, though?
Absolutely. He was the last Zadokite high priest. And if you go into the writings, it says, so 580, it says 390 years plus 20. So if you do the temple destruction at 586, 587 BCE, if I think it's, what do? You minus 390 plus 20, which would be 410, brings you to the 170s BCE when Onias III was ruling as high priest.
Are you saying he's predicted in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
As what, though? What? As like the Messiah, or what's he predicted as? You know what I'm saying?
He's predicted as the Messiah in Daniel 9 verse 26. He's called the teacher of righteousness in Joel 2:23, and he's called the Nagayad of the Barioth, or the Prince of the Covenant, in Daniel, I think, 11.
Okay, so if he's the Messiah, but anyone who teaches and follows Torah is a Messiah, what's the difference with him? Is he capital M Messiah?
I mean, do you mean like, is he above everybody? Like,
well, I'm just saying, you're saying he's predicted as the Messiah. But you also said you're a Messiah.
I'm just devoted to the Torah. This guy actually was like a actual office holding anointed priest, high priest Messiah. Like he was like, you know.
Would you say it this way? I'm just trying to understand. If this isn't it, then just tell me no. Are you saying he's like the, as in definite article, the Messiah, and you're a, as an indefinite article Messiah? Is that what you're saying? In a way?
Well, see, we have many Messiahs. So that Daniel 9, yes, he's the Messiah. And I'm just a devoted one to the Torah. So I'm not saying when I say that, well, I'm not meaning I hold an office or I'm just saying I'm devoted to the Torah.
Yeah, but Messiah is not an office, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, huh?
Prophet, priest, and king are the offices of.
Well, those are the offices, but not Messiah. Messiah is a predicted figure in the Tanakh who's going to promote the kingdom of God and do a number of other things, but Messiah is not an office, really. Are you saying that because there's other people called Messiah in a certain sense? Is that what do you mean?
So the word shayak again means meditation, prayer, conversation, to contemplate, to reflect, things like that. So when we say Messiah, that's what we mean. We mean, you know, mashayakim. We are dedicated. We ponder. We reflect on the Torah and devoted to it. Not necessarily meaning we're like a high priest, king, or prophet.
Okay. So would you say Onias III is greater than Jesus?
Yes. Yes.
Do you believe that Onias III, you said he died. Do you believe that he rose again?
Like Jesus?
Well, I'm saying, do you think Onias III resurrected?
No.
Do you think Jesus resurrected?
I don't think he died.
You don't think Jesus died? Why not? Why didn't? What happened to him?
So crucifixion, it takes a long time for you to die, but he was only on for like 3 hours. And then when the centurion poked his side, water and blood came out. That means that circulation was going on in his body. That's why
that means the pericardium was punctured and ruptured. I mean, he would have to be dead after the pericardium is punctured and ruptured.
Can you explain what's that exactly?
It's a sac around the heart, and when in the death throes, it fills up past its capacity. And so for the blood and water to flow from a wound there, that would mean the pericardium had burst, which it's, you know, if you're not dead, you're dead at that point. You can't survive at that point.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
But you're saying that you don't think Jesus died on the cross?
No.
Was he on the cross in your mind?
Yeah. The Romans were always crucifying people.
Yeah, they did crucify quite a few people. Yeah, and, you know, Jesus to them was, to a lot of them, was just another, you know, crucified Jewish person, true. So do you believe he was taken down and then he was put into a tomb and then walked out later, or what do you think happened after that?
Yes. I think that the women came in with the spices and things to like heal him up.
They revived him.
Walked out. Yeah. When he came out, you know, he was you know, disguised as a gardener and things like that. So it was like kind of like, yo, like this guy didn't spend very very much time on the. No, again, according to what you're saying, the javelin to that area under the heart.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not gonna disagree with that. Right, I'm not, you know.
Well, if he was able to survive that type of beating, you know, so like 39 lashes, you know, all these different tortures and whatnot, wouldn't he need some serious medical attention? You know, he's laying in a cave without any medical attention, and then he revives with some spices and stuff. But after that, what would happen? And do you believe that his followers did proclaim him risen after that?
Still, James and him never really talk about this at all. So it's kind of like a after the fact kind of thing. Like, you know, and remember too, I also have like the earliest, like Mark. I think Mark may be the earliest book. If it's not Matthew, I'm sorry.
Most scholars these days will say Mark was the first completed gospel. That's a pretty common belief. Okay. It's probably accurate as far as the Gospels. It's probably accurate. But what are you going to say about Mark?
Oh, so there's one I have where was it like Mark 16. I forgot what it stops at,
It,
but
it
there's
ends
like,
at verse. It ends at verse 9. Properly speaking, yes, you
and
are
there were
correct.
certain things like well, there's no genealogy in Mark. There's
There's no,
certain things
yeah,
like
only Matthew and Luke have a genealogy. But go ahead.
yes. So there's certain things in there that are kind of like there was no ascension into heaven and things like that. So it was kind of like, well, when are these written in here later? Like, you know.
Well, a few things, even in Mark 16, check this out. This is what verse 6 says, right? And he said to them, this is the angel speaking, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him, but go. Tell his disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. And they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. That is where Mark is supposed to end. So you are right. Some Christians will disagree with you, and I respect their opinion. I just think they're holding on to stuff that's not the case. So, it's the longer ending of Mark does not belong in Mark. But it still says that he's crucified and he is risen.
That doesn't necessarily imply that he died. He could have been, seriously wounded near death and got revived. No, I mean, no. Listen. I get it. I see people in the chat. They're on my neck. I get it.
No,
you guys.
we're not trying to bang like that, but I'm just saying this. Just maybe later, because I'm not trying to bring heat or anything like that. But just consider this: when you get to in your own time, look up the Greek word for risen there in the way that it's usually used. I'm not saying you have to do it now. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that. I'm just saying if you check it out, I think you'll appreciate the way that it's very, very physical. It's so agurthe and risen. And, you look at some of the other examples. See, I could see a way you might try to, I'm trying to think from someone from your perspective. I could see a way in which you could say, oh, well, it could be translated this way. So that may not be definitive for that. But it is important to understand one of the usual senses of it is to be raised from the dead. Because there are senses of it that say, or risen from sleep, but it's used often euphemistically. So just check it out, because check this out. When you look at this word in the Greek, when you look like at Matthew 9:25, I'll just give it a real quick example. You'll find the word. It says, when the crowd had been put outside, he went and took her by the hand, and the girl rose. And if you get a chance to when you get a chance to read the account, that's Jesus raising a little girl from the dead. And that's the same word there. And then later on in Matthew 10:8, it says this: heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. You receive without giving, give without pay. So it says raise the dead. It's that same Greek word there. And then in Mark, same thing, Mark 5:41, it says, little girl, I say to you, arise. And there's other examples I could give you. My point is not that you have to answer that right now. I'm just saying, if you're saying it doesn't necessarily mean that he died, check out that word and say, the way Mark is using this word at the end of Mark 16, would it indicate something other than someone rising from the dead, especially after it says he's crucified? Because in most people's minds, they're not thinking crucified is something you survive. You probably know of the one example. We have one example of history of someone surviving crucifixion. And what happened is Josephus comes into town, sees some of his old buddies crucified, asked the Roman guy to take him down because Josephus was cool with the Romans at this point. They take the guys down. They give them medical care. Say, Josephus' homies, let's try to keep these guys alive. Only one of them makes it. I forget how many were up there. It may have been 2, may have been 3. But one of them made it. But that was like a rarity. That's the one exception. Now, hypothetically, it could have happened some other time, but this is not Jesus' situation, right? Where they're torturing him before and all that kind of stuff. So I would just say, look into it, because it does indicate, rise from the dead. And that is in Mark, and it is early. And one other interesting thing is, you're right, most people would say Mark is first. Gospel's completed. And I think that's probably true, Jude. I think that's probably right. We don't technically know for sure, right? But it seems like based upon certain circumstantial evidence. However, the epistles, some of them were completed prior, at least if our dates are right, prior to the Gospels themselves, meaning the book of James and the book of 1 Thessalonians. Those are commonly dated, and I think it's almost certainly accurate, around 45 AD. Yeah,
Whoa.
James is really early. The book of James, and so is the book of 1 Thessalonians by Paul.
They predate Mark.
As far as the completed form of it, because there's a timeline they have to fit in, and it doesn't work for them to be dated later. So as far as the completed form, now the thing is, we don't technically know, like, it seems like that's the date of Mark, but we could be wrong about our gospel dates. There is a recent book that came out about 2 years ago. I meant to pick it up. There's actually two now that are scholars that are saying we need to rethink some of the dates of the New Testament books, saying that there's evidence they're much earlier than the sort of commonly kind of Wikipedia accepted definitions. I'm not saying they're from Wikipedia. I'm saying Wikipedia has the common position about when these gospels were completed, and that there's evidence. And I'll give you real quick evidence, just real quick. One. And again, I'm not saying, believe this now. I'm just talking to you. If you read Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, a key element of the argument is he keeps on saying, don't return to the temple system. Don't return to the temple sacrifice. He's saying, like, you're not supposed to go backwards. And that's really the key argument. And that's why he paints Jesus, the author of Hebrews, as a high priest. His work is done. But he's telling them, don't go back to this system. Why would you do that, right? That whole argument that he's giving doesn't make sense unless the temple's still standing. So if you put Hebrews prior to 70 AD, which I think you logically should, that should help people rethink some of the other dates we've got going on. And I'll give one other one. It has to do with the end of the book of Acts. And I think this is really important. I think sometimes people miss this. If you read through all of Acts, it's very weird how it ends in a way. It basically says Paul was on house arrest and he was telling people about the gospel while he was on house arrest. And it's the book's over. It's not grand. It's not someone going up into it doesn't end with a death. It ends kind of with a whimper in a sense. It's just Paul's on house arrest and he's telling people about the gospel. That's the last chapter. That's Acts 28. You read it and you're like, okay. I thought Luke was like the most classically trained Greek author. Because when you read these things in Greek, when you read like 1 John for first-year students, pretty easy to translate, simple vocabulary. You read Luke, you're like, I can't translate this because it's a lot more technical. It's a lot more sophisticated. Luke's Greek is at a higher level. It's evident when you look at it. My point by saying that is, why is he in like that? It only makes sense unless Paul's still alive. Well, if Paul's still alive, he's beheaded by Nero. That puts the end of the book of Acts around 67. Well, that's fascinating because guess what? Luke is writing Acts as a sequel to the book of Luke. So Luke's prior to Acts. But if Acts is completed around 67 and Luke was before that, I mean, Luke is further back as well, meaning it's got to be before 67 or so. And so you look at all that and you're like, maybe some of these commonly accepted dates are not right because there's some problems here, So just some things to consider about that. Because the reason why that would matter is you would have the Christians really quickly in their religious life proclaiming the resurrection of Jesus as a center point to their theology, really almost from jump. It's like they immediately are saying he's risen, which doesn't make a lot of sense for a few reasons if it didn't happen. Because if you study that time period, and you've probably done this before, there's a lot of people that claim to be the Messiah. There's a lot of messianic expectation in that era, right? Some of them are even mentioned in the New Testament itself. But we don't really know about many of those movements today, except as it's kind of a footnote, meaning they don't have current followers. And the reason is, in essence, is as a Jewish person, if you want the Messiah to come and restore the kingdom, he can't get himself killed by the oppressors. Yet Jesus comes and gets himself killed by the oppressors, or at least punished. We'll say that for now, right? Crucified. Well, you wouldn't push that movement unless there was some other element there, something that was surprising, meaning maybe the Messiah's mission is different than what we thought, meaning maybe it's twofold. He comes once and he comes back again. So he's fulfilling some prophecy here, some prophecy there. And maybe it's not immediately restoring like a political kingdom. Maybe there's other business first, specifically atoning for sin. And then next time, political kingdom. If that's the case and his followers believe that, it makes sense why they would say, look, this guy is risen. This guy is risen from the dead. Because at first they were disappointed. Remember at the end of the book of Luke, two guys are walking back from Emmaus on the road, or the road to Emmaus, I think, and Jesus comes, but he doesn't let them know it's them. And he's like, what are you guys so sad for? Oh, you don't know? This guy, we thought he was a Messiah, but he's dead now. But meaning they thought him being killed by the Romans eliminated him as a candidate for the Messiah. But yet, then later on, they're proclaiming him as Messiah. Well, what changed? The resurrection from the dead, meaning a vindication of his ministry. But that doesn't make sense, of course, unless he died. But I'm sorry, this is your interview, and I spoke too long, so I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. No, I'm listening. Listen, I didn't listen. I'm a student of learning. So when if this is actually true about these books predating the book of Mark, I'm here to learn like new things. Like if that's true, I'm going to do investigation, of course.
Excellent.
I would definitely like to see New Testament Israelites address this if this is necessarily true, but they really don't get into. They're in the doctrine.
Yeah.
But wait. But I have a question though, Vocab, about actually last week, and the camps won't answer this. Well, actually, they'll never answer Torah nights. For those who are watching, we rule the camps. If this is a race, and we're in the lead, we're running these guys. That's why they act like we don't exist, even though we've been here longer than they have. Anyway, it's amazing. Anyway, Revelation chapter 20 verse 4. Now this is this last week. Remember when I read Paul, I'm not sure if it's Corinthians or Hebrews. I think it might be Hebrews if I'm not mistaken. He's talking about the order of Melchizedek, right?
Okay, that's
and
Hebrews,
then he says,
by the way.
Okay, Hebrews. Okay, and he starts going into. He says, the church is the body and the wife of Christ, and they have Christ being a high priest who intercedes on the believer's behalf, right? I'm like, okay, I got that. All right. So when I go into the book of Revelation 20, it starts talking about those who were beheaded for Jesus, and then it says Christ shall reign for 1,000 years. So I always ask, even Deacon Akar, shout out to Deacon, he addressed it like very briefly, and it didn't make any sense. People were like, come on, bro. He says that Revelation 20 is not chronological, because there's a problem, right? Well, not a problem, but I'm asking you, is Revelation 20 the Christian time right now where Christ is ruling as high priest and king over the body?
So there are Christians who would say yes to that. They're called amillennialists. Sometimes I flirt with the position, meaning I'm tempted by amillennialism. As of now, I'm not an amillennialist. So as of now, I hold that the 1,000-year reign is after the return of Christ, and then there's a millennial kingdom before the final state of things. But there's some weaknesses to that position. That's why amillennialism sometimes tempts me. But if I did that, I would be seeing the 1,000 years as a symbolic number that's taking place now, just to represent a time of completion versus a literal number. Now, I think that's a very respectable position because sometimes the Bible does use numbers in that way. So it's not impossible at all. And it solves some problems, but I also think it creates some problems. So as of now, I do hold it's a literal 1,000-year reign, a millennial reign. But I wouldn't debate it. I'd rather listen to someone explain their position, if that makes sense. Because if I try to be very tentative or humble about some of the future things, meaning I would go to bat a lot more hardcore for Jesus being God. But if someone's going to talk about things in the future, I would try to be a little more, hey, I see your point, maybe, maybe not. Unless they're just saying crazy stuff. But if they're saying something that I could see, I'd say, hey, okay, I could see why you would say that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, listen, you gave the best explanation, but I still want to narrow it down.
Okay.
So in Revelation 20, okay, so it says,
can I read
the
it real
witnesses
quick?
for Jesus shall be beheaded. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, just so people know what we're talking about, because you and I know, but okay, I'm going to read Revelation 20, which Jude is asking about, everybody. And it's a good question, by the way, so I appreciate the question. I don't claim to be the eschatology expert. Some of these guys kind of bluff. They act like they know so much, but it's like, why should we trust a one Wester with prophecy? You guys got 1999 wrong. But here we go. Let's look at Revelation 20. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding in his hand the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain. And he seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the pit, and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he might not deceive the nations any longer, until the 1,000 years were ended. After that he must be released for a little while. Then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those to whom the authority to judge was committed. Also I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus, and for the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests in God of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years.
Now look, it says priest. Can you read that one part again where it says they shall be priest?
Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. So that's Revelation 26, chapter 20, verse 6.
So do you remember Paul says, he says, we are a kingdom of priests. Wait, I forgot. How
1 Peter 2:9. That's Peter quoting the Old Testament in relationship to the Christian church. Are you talking about 1 Peter 2:9? I think you're talking about
Peter does it, and Paul also says, we have a high priest who is interceding for us right now.
Okay, yeah. I think you're talking about the book of Hebrews, probably.
Yes. I think it's the book of Hebrews, right? So
yeah,
I'm like, now look, I'm not saying, I'm saying, hey, look, to me, if my opinion, which you're a Christian, so you would know about this more than I would, especially the book of Revelation, which I have studied, but I'm not a Christian, but so right? I heard, I'm not going to say his name, he probably doesn't want his name mentioned, but there's an elder of a well-known camp who says that the 1,000 years of Satan was back in the Middle Ages.
Oh, really?
Something. Yeah, like it was like the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages was the 1,000-year reign of Satan. And so I'm like,
who says that?
Wait a minute. Orion Blob and Great Millstone.
Really?
Sorry, I didn't mean to snitch, but I'm not going against them. I'm saying this is what they teach, and I've always been kind of confused. Like, okay, if Satan's rule for 1,000 years was the Middle Ages, then right when's the 1,000-year reign of Christ? I'm like, I can only think of it must be the Christians ruling now, because I'm thinking that the 1,000 years is not necessarily a literal 1,000 years. It could be like a symbolic number.
For example, like where the Bible says that he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. That's an example of a symbolic. It's the Bible says that in the Old Testament. Of course, it's not saying that God does not own the cattle on the 1,001 hill. It's saying he owns all the cattle on all the hills. So it could be. That's what I was saying in the beginning. It could be. As of now, it sounds literal, actual, but I would not create contention over it. You know what I mean? Because I understand. Well, unless the person there's wacky positions like, but amillennial position is it's symbolic of the intern time between Christ leaving the ascension and Christ's second advent when he returns. Amillennials say it's symbolic, that time in the middle, and at the end of it, Satan will be loosed again.
So are we now in the Satan time? I'm confused. Like, I'm not confused what you're saying. I'm saying
no. Amillennialists say something like that. I'm not that great at explaining the amillennialist position because it's not my position as of now. I hold that Satan is going to and fro, seeking whom he may devour right now, and to me that includes deceiving the nations. I hold that when the Lord returns, Jesus returns, he will bound Satan for 1,000 years. Then at the end of the 1,000 years, he's loose one more time before being thrown into the bottomless pit. That's my understanding of eschatology as of now. But the thing with priests is interesting. The question is, what does it mean? So I don't think Revelation is saying that they're functioning as priests who are offering animal sacrifices for people. It's that they're
Right.
worshiping as priests. Because if you read Revelation, it talks about the prayers of the saints and things like that are like an incense or an aroma to the Lord. And there's even times in the New Testament where it refers to bringing a spiritual sacrifice, a spiritual praise, indicating there's a certain sense in which Christians could be said to be priests, but it's not because they're officiating a system. It's because they are worshiping the Lord in some way, like an Old Testament priest. But, Hebrews is very clear that we have one actual high priest who really did intercede and atone and is still doing that, but his work is done. Therefore, he's sitting down, indicating his work's completed. He's not still needing to do it. It was done on the cross, and that's what the "it is finished" was all about. So the priest for Christians now, we would hold to be very symbolic. That's a pretty standard position, that part. That's less controversial than 1,000 years. The 1,000 years is very controversial, even amongst Christians. So if you ask a different Christian, they may give a very different answer to what I just said. They may think I'm crazy. It's pretty controversial. The 1,000 years, the millennial reign, that's very controversial. We must admit that. There's a lot of disagreement and stuff like that. I try not to divide over it. The priest being spiritual, offering spiritual worship in a symbolic way, that's not as controversial. That's a lot more understood as that's something that Christians are to do and are to be, but not that we're actually offering sacrifices. So we believe that's done away with because Jesus already did it. Huh?
Ministers is kind of...
Yeah. There's a certain sense. And there's one particular verse I'll try to find real quick. Where did it go? But I don't know. I wasn't sure if I exactly answered your question though.
You know what? Listen, this question I've been badgering New Testament Israelites about this, and I can honestly say you gave me the most understandable. Even though you're saying, well, I'm not necessarily going to go 100% with this, but I am going to say, whatever. Most of the time they just won't even address it. Like I said, shout out to Deacon Cobb. He just literally he was like, it's not chronological, and then just dropped it. And then people were like,
you know what it is?
Come on, bro.
So, there's a lot of things going on there, Judah. There's, men have pride and egos, right? And then there's a certain element, especially of One West Hebrewism, in which honestly it's very, very fake. It's just not authentic, meaning the guys act like they always have the answer. They're always on top. They're always in charge. They're always teaching someone. They always know for sure. And it's really a front because no one is actually made like that. So these guys a lot of time portray that. So I believe with a lot of One Westers, it's difficult to have a kind of a human interaction, actual dialogue, because I think there's a whole charade and facade in front of a lot of what they do, in my opinion. Like if you were a One Wester, it'd be so difficult to have this conversation, not because I would be different, because the One Wester a lot of times always has a hidden agenda. No, they're just trying to embarrass you. It's like, look, can't we just have a real life human interaction right now? That almost doesn't exist because it's always a game. You gotta outdo someone. So a lot of times there's a lot of questions they've never thought about, they haven't looked into, they have shallow answers. Most of them have never read deeply on it. When they say do research, you and I both know it usually means they've listened to hours of camp teaching on the subject or watched a few YouTube videos or talked in the barbershop about it, straight up. It doesn't usually mean they've read scholarly resources. There are rare exceptions. Now, I'm talking about One Westers. I'm not talking about everybody across the landscape. I am stereotyping them because I found it to be generally true. Now, I hope they change. I hope that this changes. Maybe you can help. You can be a rod of iron in Yahweh's hand to correct them. Maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like the way God used the Assyrians in the Old Testament. I'm just saying, like there's that. But here's the verse real quick. I'll read it, and I want to see what your reaction is because I did find where I was looking for. So this is 1 Peter 2. Check this out. This is a really cool passage, I think. Starting in verse 4. As you come to him, a living stone rejected by men, but in the sight of God, chosen and precious, referring to Jesus there, you yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house. So that's interesting because Peter there, I would say he's not pushing a recreation of the nation of Israel. He's pushing something else. He calls it a spiritual house. That's fascinating, I think. And it's centered on Jesus. Continuing on, to be a holy priesthood. So it's important, everyone, to remember before Peter said a holy priesthood, he's already referred to it as operating in a spiritual house. Very important, the chronology there, what he's saying. And then the next line is just absolutely beautiful. Spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For it stands in Scripture, and then it goes on to talk about the cornerstone and all that. My point is, Peter is seeing very clearly, showing, okay, we're priests as Christians, but what does it mean? Because it's spiritual sacrifices. And he says it once again in 1 Peter 2:9. Your chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you have not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. So just showing that it's symbolic. And I think that's what Revelation is saying. It's not saying Christians are actually operating in priests at any time because it's done away with. That's why I'm not here to bang on Roman Catholics, but that's why as a Protestant, one of the reasons I'm so anti-Roman Catholicism. It has this whole system of priests and everything. And the Bible says, if you're talking about actual priests who are in some way offering a sacrifice, because that's basically what they think they're doing at Mass. Yeah. Jesus already did that. What are you doing? Now, they have reasons. They've worked on arguments for thousands of years. But I think it's quite a tragedy that they're still promoting some idea of some kind of physical priesthood in any sense, you know? Real quick before you respond, shout out to Jay Fry for the super chat. Thank you, Jay Fry. You're going to hook the dog up. You guys help this little program go. Adrian, you ready? All right, there we go. She gets a super treat. But I don't know, does that help some, that concept, that idea?
Yes. See, now look, Vocab, you actually helped me out a lot. I know you probably wonder, how is that? But you do, because now, listen, I'm a troll, and Vocab's known me for like a decade. You've known me for like maybe a little less than 10 years, but about 10 years.
Coming up on it.
Yeah, so Vocab's known me for a long time. You see people in the chat like, oh, Jesus being exposed. They've known me for years. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, that helps me out because a lot of people say, well, it's the order of Melchizedek, right? And they said that this order or priesthood, which we know, we're not talking about animal sacrifice. I get that. I understand. And priest generally just really kind of means like minister, right? An official, a minister. So not necessarily offering animal sacrifice. I get that. But from what I see, and if I'm wrong, I hope if I'm wrong, people, someone's more learned can correct me. It seems as if right now is the Christian rule or empire, because it says all things are placed under Jesus' feet, right? So when you just read Paul and I read when you read Peter and I read Paul, it sounds like to me like the priesthood is the Christian church. Whether I know there's arguments and dissensions within the Christian whole, but it sounds like the how am I keeping the law? Easy.
Well, real quick on that, I'll let you answer that. Everyone, what we're going to do now is I feel like I've asked them a lot of questions. We'll kind of turn. There's more I want to ask you, but I do want to give people in the live chat. If you guys want to ask Jude a question, here's the way to do it. Try to @ me and then hit a Q with a question mark. If you can fit it all in that, will kind of draw my eyes to it. If you do a super chat, I'm definitely going to see it. But if you could do that, and we'll try to do some questions if we can, though. But I hear what you're saying about the priests, but the thing is priests aren't ruling. So that's why I wouldn't see anything with a Christian priesthood as a Christian rule. And I also don't see Christians as in rulership. So like people in America saying they're Christian, by the way, which is less and less of a thing these days, it doesn't equal that actual Christians are really ruling anyway. Like during the pandemic, for example, there was a number of Canadian churches that kept their churches open despite what the government said. 2 of them in particular, and I watched a documentary on this. It's called The Essential Church. I think a lot of people should watch it. They were arrested and thrown in jail just for holding services. The Canadian government came and changed the locks at these churches. They weren't doing anything except for gathering during the pandemic.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's really that's just one example. That's in the West. When we talk about Nigeria and what's happening there, and it's not even a predominantly Islamic country, and yet the way Christians are being slaughtered, especially in some sections by Boko Haram and whatnot, you see this all over, and you're like, this doesn't look like rulership. I could see someone living in the Middle Ages when they looked and they saw the Eastern Orthodox Byzantine Empire and in the West, the so-called Holy Roman Empire, thinking that's the case and things like that, even though I view those things very huge errors in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? There's some interesting discussions there, and Christians do have different views, but I would just explain the nature of the priesthood being that it's basically saying we're worshiping God in essence. Okay. And we only have one priest these days. But final thing, or if there's a question you want to ask me before we get to some of these in the live chat, Judah. And by the way, I just want to let you know I appreciate the dialogue.
Yeah, me too. It's a it's really a shame that not a shame like in a bad way. It's really a shame that conversations like this between an Israelite and a Christian can take place with dialogue. But our brothers, like or their Hebrew Israelite brothers, they act like Israelites don't exist, and they're gonna like talk crazy, like but it's like, come on, if these guys didn't act like a cult, there could be more. Because if it's one thing I say about about us all is we don't have anything, and the reason why we don't have anything is because the leaders don't want to do anything. They don't want to provide for everybody. They want to act like a cult. And so that's why there's all these splinter. We're not associated with this group. We're not affiliated with that group. All this, and it's kind of like, yo, man, like Christians do it too. At the same time, they get on code. Muslims, they do that too, but they get on code when it's time for when you attack Islam. The Shia, Sunni, they all band together. They don't say, hey, well, you're Sunni, so I'm not going to deal with you. No, if someone attacks Islam, they all band together. Only against the Israelites is just, no, we don't have that, probably due to poor leadership. These guys, they were popping back in the 50s and 60s, but in this 2023, these guys still got an old, outdated playbook, and we're not going anywhere. I think we hit like the roof at this juncture because a lot of Israelites don't keep the Torah. Like this here is like roach spray. They won't even say Torah; they'll say law. A law is like if you get caught in adultery, it's punishable by
Stoned.
what? That's a law.
Stone.
This is it. Tawara means instructions or teachings. They won't even say the word. So, but yeah, I appreciate that. That we can actually have this thing because people wanted me to come over and act a fool, and I'm like, I don't go to people's channels and act a fool, and we already got enough fools in Israel for a lifetime, for us. So I'm not going to do that, and I definitely do appreciate the dialogue.
That's good. Well, praise God. Well, I like when people can do this and hopefully get somewhere. And, I never do the kind of thing where sometimes I'll have a good dialogue with somebody and then later on I go to the channel and it's like retitled Christian Apologists Exposed. So I was like, man, come on, bro. Keep it straight. But shout out to all the super chatters, Patriots in Christ, Tack K's, Tony Tabano, my man Paisano, and Jay Fry. And then here's a couple of the questions. Yes, Ephraim Joestar said Torah Knight's foundation took an L tonight. We can all agree to that, I think. But just so you know, he also said what Vocab said, what just said is an error, respectfully speaking. So it doesn't sound like he agrees with any of us. I don't understand, Ephraim, why you would say, Judah, no one took an L. We're having a discussion. I don't even know what you're talking about. Is listening to someone taking an L? If listening to someone is taking an L, then okay, but that shouldn't be considered taking an L. People were odd with that. But I've had that same thing. I remember when I went and talked to Israel of God, and for a lot of the dialogue in Chicago, I just listened to them, and all these like videos came out about how I was sitting there stunned in silence, and I was awestruck by their wisdom and brilliance, and I was humbled in the sight of the Lord. I was just listening to the guys, just trying to show respect. It wasn't like some kind of like scandal, but people try to do that sometimes. So I kind of ignore that, to be honest.
No, I hear you. Listen, these guys wanted me to come over and act a fool. Like everything has to be a debate. Listen, shout out to Orthodox Mar Shalom, brother. Several years ago, when Vocab's telling you when I was wild, yeah, everything was a debate. Everything, like I was battle ready. But now I'm, like, come on, man, like I got, grays and I just don't have that. I'm like Tahar now. I just don't have that fire. No, I have the fire here. I don't have that. Like, I'm not in that space anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, Tahar. And I'm not dogging out Great Millstone. I'm just saying, y'all remember Tahar when he used to be fiery?
Yeah, we saw the Rasta video.
Yeah, he's very calm now. He's
all like this. What's that one movie with that guy? Harrison Ford. It's like Harrison Ford. Everything. It's like.
Well, I mean, he calmed down a lot. That's all. He didn't have. It comes with age. That's all I'm saying. They expected me to come over here and act the fool, and he took an L based on Onias. You don't even know who Onias is. Sit down.
Well, here's some Bane Mailer, who's a Christian, says Judah did a good job here, and. Purely Grounded says calm dialogue makes for a much better TV. I think the problem mainly is the Onias theory. Well, I would agree with Ephraim that I would disagree with the Onias theory, but all he did was sort of explain parts of it. That's as far as it went. So it's just him explaining his viewpoint on that, which is, to my understanding, a kind of a unique viewpoint. Thomas says, excellent discussion between two humans. I commend you both. Shout out to Orthodox More, by the way. And Ephraim says, Stone Edition, question mark? I don't know. What's that question about?
So
what you had.
Yeah, the Torah Knights go-to is the Stone Edition. But we have other ones, but this is our number one go-to, Stone Edition Tanakh. We bought so many, they sold out. So I think they restocked them, though. But, yeah.
Robert says it wasn't a debate, religious discussion. Yeah, I mean, the thing I said is, like, I'm just interviewing him. Jesus King said good dialogue. I mean, we could debate in the future, by the way. I'm okay with that. But it's like, I also believe in being honest. If you're going to debate, tell the person, well, let's debate. If you're going to do dialogue, don't switch and turn it into a debate. That's dishonest. You know what I mean? Patriots says, everyone here gets a W in my book. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm sorry. I'm done.
Vocab, come on, man. Tazariak, you know you lost that, bro. You know you lost that, bro. Bro, it literally says that she was a virgin and that Joseph didn't touch. Stop, bro. Stop. I heard you trying to put some One West magic. No, bro. And so I went in there myself. And I'm like, wait a minute. Vocab's right. It does say that she, right? So after going up, not going up, but after debating Tazariak, Vocab, you got to debate the cream of the crop, man. Come on, man. You got the Torah Knights. We're the top of the summit.
Okay.
Oh, you guys don't have very many people. Yeah, because most people don't understand what we're talking about. Like, we get into the Levitical priesthood, we get into the language, we know the Aramaic, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Most Israelites don't know what we're talking about, so they listen to the more simple kindergarten kind of Israelite channels.
Well, what do you think? What do you think we should debate? What would be a good topic for Vocab versus Torah Knights or something like that? What would be a good one, you think?
Well, I retired JJ on this, so you probably won't take this one. Daniel 9, verse 26, the Messiah that was cut off.
Well, you'd want it to be, what would be like the thesis or the question we'd be asking? Who
was that? Who was that Messiah?
Okay, what are some other ideas you have too? Is that what are some other...
Okay, well, I have to ask you this because you haven't made this claim. So I wanted to ask you before. Do you believe that Jesus is going to return and sit on, well, it will be the throne of Jesus, not David, but do you believe that Jesus is going to come back to earth and rule on an earthly throne?
Yeah, I believe he'll rule a new heaven and new earth for all time, but not in the ways people think. They think that if you rule, sometimes you've got to have slaves and servants and all that. It's just that God's will be unchallenged and permanent on the earth. And Jesus will be, even the sitting language, that just means he's established, he's done, not that he's literally just sitting there sitting or anything like that. But yeah, I believe that Jesus is prophet, priest, and king. I believe he fulfills those three roles. So he is the greater David who will rule over his people of both Jew and Gentile alike forever. So I would believe that. Yeah, why?
Well, on a human throne, because this is where it also gets a little murky there too.
Well, it's a throne established by Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who established David's throne, and the ultimate greater purpose is for it to be without end. And for it to be without end, it can't be a temporal human thing. So I wouldn't say it's human. When I hear the throne of David, and I'm understanding it in the Messianic context, I'm just understanding it as the greater son of David. Because I look at Samuel, where he says, hey, I'm going to establish your descendant on the throne forever. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Yahweh establishing the Messiah's permanent reign or something. I don't know if that's clear what you're saying. What exactly would the debate be on that one?
Well, do you mean, because I forgot who it was. Somebody said that Jesus' reign would not be on earth. It'll be in heaven.
Oh, that's no. So if we talked about Revelation earlier, right? When you look at the end of Revelation, the way the Bible actually portrays it is a heavenly city comes down, and the Bible says this is a new heaven and a new earth. So the heavenly city comes down. So we are on the earth forever. It's just a new earth. There's no death, there's no crying, there's no pain. By the way, which is why I don't believe in the whole slavery in the kingdom thing. One reason is it says no death, no crying, no pain, and yet they're talking about killing people, and some of them talking about raping their wives and stuff. We're like, well, it's just no pain for us, but it's pain for everyone else. Well, okay, sure, but I don't think so. But yeah, so that would be the position with that.
Well, is he going to reign on earth? Because he would have to
the new earth,
relations. Yeah. I mean, do you know in Jeremiah 33 where it says David should never lack for a man to sit on his throne, nor shall the
Yes.
Levites to offer fat in the blood?
Yeah.
So I'm just asking, would Jesus be having relations with women to keep the dynasty going, or?
Oh no, because it's done. There's no. Jesus lives forever. He's God. He doesn't need to have an heir.
Wait. So, I'm confused. Wait. So when Israel gains world ascendancy, there's going to be a dynasty. Are you saying there's not going to be a human dynasty?
If you mean a dynasty as in successors from a line, no, because Jesus is the final king. In the Bible, in the book of Revelation, he's the King of Kings, and he's sitting on the throne with God the Father. So there's no continuation after that, because you only need a dynasty if the ruler's dying, right? But if the ruler's not dying, if the ruler lives forever, then why does he need to have offspring? I would say the picture that the Bible paints is Christians are Jesus' spiritual offspring. He never had any physical offspring and never will. And he doesn't need to keep the throne going perpetuity or anything like that, because it's already done. He's the only one, because it's God's throne. So that comes back to the belief of Jesus being God. So if you have God himself ruling a reign, it's done.
Would you like to debate that? Because we're going to have we're taught that we're going to have a physical kingdom and physical priesthood reinstated.
Well, it is a physical kingdom, meaning it's really real. It's really on the earth. You know what I'm saying? But it's not Jesus and then his kids, or you wouldn't say it's Jesus, but David or the Messiah and his kids. It's just Jesus. But when we say that, we're saying God. I don't know, maybe something like that. I don't know how we would make the debate thesis go, though. But
it'll be like, so we believe that King David will return to establish his monarchy.
Oh, actual King David.
Yes.
So you wouldn't see that as a picture of the Messiah, then?
Yeah, he's our royal Messiah.
Okay.
So we have like a royal Messiah and we have a high priest Messiah.
Okay. I don't maybe.
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so you didn't want to do the Daniel 9. Okay. The Davidic line. And there was another one I don't really believe that Isaiah 53 is talking about a man, but if I did have to put a man there, it would have to be Onias III. Would you put Jesus versus Onias III?
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't put Onias III. Well, that might definitely be an interesting one. Why that
you
could
should
be
look. Have you read? I know you don't. I know you don't do the Apocrypha. Now I gotta say this: One West, y'all have the Apocrypha, and y'all have that Second Maccabees, and you know what it says about Onias. They know, but they will never say his name. Never. Aram Mob, isn't that right? Because he said, yeah, Judah Natzarah was right, but he will never say my name. And he'll never say Onias III's name. Never. Alzar, never. Deacon, never. They will never say. Check this out, Vocab. One time I was on Deacon's channel. Shout out to Sakari. I you know me. I love to set those traps. I dug a big hole, put some tissue over it. Once Deacon looked in that hole and saw he was about to fall into it, he kicked me right off the panel. And we all laughed. It's all good, but they will never say Onias' name. You should definitely check him out. He's definitely he's not ordinary.
Well, it sounds like an interesting guy to discuss. Real quick, Larry Love gave a super chat, and Larry Love, thank you very much. So, Adrian, there you go. She's part of the show, bro. She's part of the show, basically, my Doberman.
Adrian, you have to poop, or she's gonna have to poop soon.
Oh, I'll take her out before I go to bed. So here's what's funny. I got a clip from you back in like April of 2017. I think this is on your old channel, but I want you to see what this says. Hispanic brother leaves Freemasonic IUIC and reports to FBI Jesuit agent Vocab Malone. Went from one Jesuit group to another, and this is what happens when you forsake the Torah. You praise the wicked. And then after that, it says, all worship the Pope.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Bro, do you know what the Jesuits do? Show them, Domo, show them, brother. Do you know what the Jesuits do? The Jesuits infiltrate your organization and have you worshiping the Pope. That's what they do. That's their whole job. So a lot of these Israelites who are bloodline Israelites, they work for the Pope. Let's get to it. You don't think Vocab, Malone, and them work for the Pope? They work for the Pope. When I say Christ, religious Christianity, Christ, that is called the Logos. That is Zeus. That's some pagan heathen stuff. The actual guy, they falsely call Jesus.
All I want to say is this.
I still teach that.
Hey, Pope Frankie, where's my check? If I'm out here working for the Pope, so far it's been pro bono because I ain't received nothing from the Vatican.
Well, hold on, Vocab. There's a clip of you where you were preaching, and there was a guy in the chat that said, "How'd you get started with this?" And you said a guy knocked on your door, and he worked for the Vatican and the FBI or Jesuit.
That was a purposeful troll. Because if you look at the clip, the way it got released was I put it on my channel and I put Vocab exposed. It's a troll, meaning the origin of the clip is me myself. They would have never had the clip unless I uploaded it. It wasn't like a secret someone discovered. I literally uploaded it about Vocab tells the truth about his agenda. And the reason I did that is because I got so tired of hearing that from people that when this guy asked, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give the Israelites something to talk about here. By telling them that.
Okay. I thought you were serious.
No. If you listen to it, if you listen, I think you can tell I'm making it up on the spot. Because I say, we work for the FBI and also for the Vatican or whatever. You know, it's like I'm just making up stuff. I was chilling in my house, guys in black suits. It's I still think it's funny. I'm probably going to do something like that again. Mainly because it's like this. So I view it as conspiracy theories. So I don't agree with one Westers. I don't think they're Jesuits or work for the Pope or anything like that. In reality, brother, in reality, most modern Jesuits are liberals. Like Boston College, where there's a lot of American Catholic Jesuits, they don't even believe in the Bible for the most part. They're progressive in their theology, meaning Jesuits are not the same Society of Jesus that was started a long time ago as a Counter-Reformation movement or anything like that. They're like the academics of Roman Catholicism. A lot of them are liberal, kind of like, Francis himself is pretty liberal. If you look at some of the stuff he says, I view it more as a spiritual warfare level, meaning one Westers are deceived. I believe there's demonic influence over the camps. If that would be my version of conspiracy theory, not that they're working for the Pope or the government or anything like that. I don't think the government cares about half of this, what's going on, in my opinion. I think it's people wanting their stuff to be more important than it is. And, honestly, Judah, for real though, a lot of people don't care about what I do. What I mean by that is, within Christianity, so many American Christians just want to listen to their praise and worship song, drink their coffee, check in and out of church, feel good, and just live their life, When you start talking about defending your belief and studying and reading and then doing apologetics and debating on the internet, a lot of that is weird to a lot of like so-called American Christians. They don't even know what the heck you're doing. Then when I start saying it's this, I deal with one of the main groups I deal with is Hebrew Israelites. Most people don't even know what I'm talking about. Now a little more people are knowing, but especially when I first started, people, and they still don't really care that much. It's just not where the action is to a lot of people. Now I think it's very important. So I'm not minimizing its importance, by the way. I'm just saying, in my practical experience, most people don't really care what it is on. I had more popularity when I was focusing on Islam more because more people are into that because it's a global thing people are more aware of. If I stayed in that lane, it would be better in a sense. But that, I believe, I feel called to this. But we might have different views about that. I think it's kind of a conspiracy theory to say they're really working for Jesuits. I would have to see like hard, fast evidence to something like that. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
You hear about that story? My channel got YouTube took my video down. There was a group, called Neo Santo Saints.
Okay.
Ideology, shout out to him. They were telling a story in their video about how they were in the One West, and someone had left their wallet on top of a telephone that was in the building. So they didn't know whose wallet it was. So they opened it up to see, identification or whatever, and they saw a hand sign booklet. If you know what I'm talking about, I don't want to get, right?
That's all right. Go ahead.
And you know what group I'm talking about. And they were doing a hand sign booklet, and I don't mean a gang.
You mean like some Masonic Illuminati stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So they start, he goes into it, and how they start teaching these weird doctrines and doing hand signs and doing all this or whatever. So some of these guys are juiced in with them. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't listen. At first, I was a little weirded out when I was like, "Why is Vocab always attacking Israelites?"
Yeah,
I was a little like years ago. I was like, but then as the certain camps, not all, certain camps became more Christian sounding. I'm like, well, actually, they sound more closer to Vocab's position than necessarily ours. So why don't they just go back to church? And then some of them actually do. No, I mean, some of them have. Elder Yafta from One Body Yahushai basically is pretty much, to me, sounds like he's getting back in the church.
Yeah, we had an interesting discussion with him, and he's an interesting guy. I appreciate that he's tried to drop some of the sort of bigotry out of his doctrine, but I still feel like there's a lot of conspiracy theories. I don't know if you know, but he teaches that this German guy from the 30s was actually a black man. He teaches all kinds of really out there stuff now in relationship, and he'll say he researched it all, but it's like, now that doesn't necessarily mean he's not, making positive steps, but there's a lot of odd stuff mixed in there, and I try to hear him out, but it's pretty difficult. I think there's a lot of just people that are sort of, when I say conspiracy theorists, what I mean is people that are sort of doing unfounded, they're making claims without really good evidence. So, for example, that story about finding a wallet with hand signs, Judah, you and I actually have no way to verify that. For that to be true, we'd have to be trusting fully the people telling the story. And I don't trust a lot of these people telling stories. They have a story they tell about Rosicrucians rolling up to Old One West and writing a blank check. That just sounds like utter garbage to me. Really? Writing a blank check? Wouldn't it at least be amount? It's so utterly extraordinary. And all it does is it makes it seem like what they're doing is important. I feel like they're telling stories to basically make it seem as if the whole world is watching them. I feel like it's a sort of a version of megalomania. And I'm like, you need to give some evidence for that kind of thing, right? Some kind of evidence. You can't just tell us, because I don't think we should trust what One Westers say. I mean, they're reporting angelic visions. They're reporting, there's old stories circulating about one of the old One Westers, because I don't know if you know, they had this special form of martial arts they were teaching in the old school. And one of the guys says he used it to fight off like 15 cops using his like armbands as special weapons. These are all stories that circulate amongst the old timers. Now, a lot of the new guys we deal with, they don't even know any of this. So your vocab's lying. But when you actually talk to the old timers, they'll tell these stories that were circulating there at One West, and it's so much of it's crazy. The craziest one, and I think only one guy was telling it, but he was one of the 7 heads that was telling it. I think it was Yeshaya. And people that were in the school could verify this, taught about the Pope riding up to the school on a horse. Yeshaya used to tell the story. And they'll say it's not true, but Yeshaya told the story on a regular basis. Everyone I know from the old school that was there at that time confirms that story. And so you're like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think guys like Tazadakia basically just continued that tradition. So he tells us he went to Israel and had a vision. All the evidence is that he never left the country. That's why he never produced his passport. His people who left the ICG said, show us your passport. He never did it. He said, I'm going to. And it would be so easy to show a passport stamped to Israel. And he never did. There's no evidence he was ever in Israel to even have the vision. I mean, Yai Kwab says that an angel appeared to him and told him that a lot of the stuff they were teaching in the old school was wrong, but the ICJGC was going to correct it. Yai Kwab is Ariah's father. And this is when he was with the ICJGC, was my understanding still. And you have all these things. Ariah, of course, just says an angel gave him a chart. Angel gave them Lashawat Kodash. There's all kinds of real weird stories amongst these. And so my point is, some guy saying he found a wallet, I don't believe it. Now, I will tell you this one, though. This is a real one. Malachi Z. York was battling the One Westers in the old school back in the 90s, right? And Malachi Z. York's got his own problems. But one Wester went into his York school or something. They were having some debate or something. And when the guy left, his wallet fell. This is a real one. And the reason I know it's real is because they photocopied and put the actual image in a book. His welfare card was And so in this book that Z York did against One Westers, he put the welfare card inside the book that was circulating in Manhattan. It was the guy's name, the guy, everything. It was a real thing in the 90s. So to me, I'm like, well, I see a photocopy. That seems like that's a real story. Not that I trust Malachi Z. York. I mean, my goodness. But I'm saying someone was telling the truth about that, it seems like, because it's the actual guy and it's welfare. Now, look, I don't even think it's a big deal, okay? So what? You got a welfare card. Most of us who haven't lived privileged lives have qualified to be on welfare. So what? We remember, well, some of us remember what the old government cheese tasted like in those big boxes that look like baseball card collector sets. The government cheese you slice off and it falls down.
Delicious.
It kind of bounce it. It's kind of rubbery. We know that stuff. So I don't even care anyway, but it's kind of just, I think we should be a lot more skeptical about anything these guys tell us, bro. And the hand sign stuff, everybody does stuff, especially you can freeze frame anybody doing a symbol. That's true. I just feel like we got to do better because it's a distraction from the real issues. Like what you and I talked about tonight, I think was a lot of real issues. But if the whole time we were accusing each other of being Jesuits, we would have never got anything accomplished. You know what I mean? That's just my perspective on it.
Well, to me, Jesuits just they were like the military wing of the Catholic Church back in the days.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Yes, they were.
Malay and all that. Yeah,
and that's true. I just maintain that things change. And I'm not saying Rome is perfect. I'm just saying the Roman Catholic Church of 2023 is not the same as when Pope Leo X was in charge. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay. But yeah, they definitely were. I mean, I'm reading a book right now about the Huguenots, the French Protestants, and the way that the French crown, which was Catholic, did them, especially one massacre in particular was, I mean, it's unbelievable. The things that happened that were done. I'm not saying Protestants didn't do anything wrong, but a lot of bloodshed. And so I could see why people do have conspiracies about the Catholic Church because the history is very, very bad. And again, you can find Protestants doing things bad as well. We agree. The question is it sanctioned, But Ephraim says, why does Vocab make it seem like adherents of Christianity don't believe similar things? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Similar things about what? Not sure. Bane Mailer says, why would a grown man dressed as a wizard lie to us?
Come on, man.
Yeah. Oh, look, Ephraim knows. Whoa. So who is this Ephraim guy? Whoever you are, you've been around a while. So he knows what I'm talking about. So whoever this guy is, I thought he was sort of trolling at first. Sorry about that, Ephraim. The fact that you know the title, so he's right. That is the title of the book I was talking about. But not a lot of people know this. So he knows, he's probably been around a while, or he knows a lot of history. And it was called 360 Questions to Ask the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. So shout out to you, Ephraim, because you definitely know some history. You definitely know some history there, because that was it. Final words, man, or any other questions you see you want to get to? Oh, KL, last super chat of the night, says, yo, don't forget to delete this, Vocab, the Pope. So I got a message from the Pope telling me I can delete this.
come on, Vocab, come on, man. Don't be a Tazariak, man. Come on, come on. You got to debate the big guys.
I'm not deleting it. I'm just...
No, I'm saying in the future you got to debate the big guys because Tazariak he avoids me. I think. Shout out to Sadnetter. Sadnetter said there were people who were paying him not to debate me.
Really?
Oh yeah, like some of your favorite Israelites. Listen, I say this, and y'all think I'm joking. Some of your favorite Israelites have a poster of Judah Natzarah on their ceiling, so they see me when they first thing and they wake up. Like, I hate Judah Natzarah. I love Judah Natzarah. So yeah, they were paying Sadnetter to avoid debating me, which is good because they were going to get rinsed anyways. But yeah, Vocab, man, come on, man, you got a W over Tazariak, man. You got to step up to the
Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53 is the most interesting to me out of the three that you said, I think.
Okay.
But let's see the Isaiah 53 one. I think that could be important and interesting. Didn't Chris Harris debate that with who was that? With LaRon? He debated that when he was. Wait, with you?
Yeah. Debate talk for you.
Oh wait, is that the debate that made him switch?
He switched?
No, I'm saying Chris Harris used to hold to the New Testament, and then he dropped it. Was it because he lost that debate to you?
No. No, I debated LaRon on the Isaiah 53.
Okay.
and there were some one Westers that called in. They know who they are, Deacon. Anyway, Chris watched the movie called Black Panther. And I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, but something happened. He must have watched them when they were doing those spells when they were with the bald-headed women, because right after that movie, he didn't believe in the Bible no more. He said that the book is about the Nazarenes, and he got bugged out of his skull after that. It was over after that movie. Hi, Nihongo Hanashimasu. I speak Japanese. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, wouldn't it be great to see? Check this out. This was my favorite comment of tonight. Someone says this. Where'd it go? Oh man, I can't find it now. Oh yeah. For some reason, I want to hear them on the corner speaking Japanese.
Listen, they're so bugged out. They think that Ammon and Moab are China and Japan.
Yeah.
First off, anybody that reads the Bible knows that the Chinese still go by their ancient name to this very day, the Sinaites. Their airport is called Sina. I think it's Isaiah 49 verse 11. It says Israelites should even come from the far east, which is what? China, right? So when you go into the scriptures, when it says that when Israel returns back, they'll fight against the Philistines, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Moabites, the Philistines, or whatever. That's people who live around the land. So according to these guys, they're saying you're going to go to the land and then go all the way to China and Japan. When I don't think Japan was even a country. In China, it was called the Sinaites.
Right.
If you read them in Genesis chapter 10, the Table of Nations. But
have you seen the people that claim the Japanese are blood descendant Israelites?
Yes.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, there's a Japanese Jesus here that's buried that my wife likes to say that's her uncle. I don't know if you've ever heard that story.
No, I've heard.
No, look it up. Like Jesus is buried in Japan. They have it's a Buddhist city, but there's a grave with a cross, and they're like, Jesus came here and died.
Well, yeah, there's tales of him going to India. Everybody wants Jesus to come visit their country. I say, just give it time. Just give it time. Orthodox Moore says, shout out to the Yap brothers in Japan. And the Nut House says the original Israelites were Eskimos. I don't know if he's joking or not, but it's funny you bring that up, Nut House. There's a debate amongst one Westers, are the Eskimo Israelites or not? Because some put them under Gad, others say they're not. Ephraim says, Vocab, in your opinion, what's the fastest growing version of Christianity in the USA? I think what you're probably saying is Hebrew Israelism. I wouldn't call it a version of Christianity, but I understand why someone would in a certain sense. I think by far the fastest growing new religious movement, that's a term I would use, is Hebrew Israelism. Of all the types and stripes, you got to put it under one together. But I'm talking about in America, it's definitely the fastest growing because the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't growing anymore. Domestically, the Mormons aren't. Now they had their time, especially in the 80s, but into the 90s, it seems like it petered off, especially with the advent of the internet. A lot of these groups really slowed down. So no longer those groups. You look around and say, what's growing currently? It's not the Scientologists. It's clearly not Christian Science. You look now, unless you count secularism as a religion, which in a certain sense it is, that's the fastest growing ideology, I believe, in America, secularism. But if you say, like, as far as a new religious movement, I don't think there's even a question it's Hebrew Israelism. Now, people may not like the term Hebrew Israelism, but I agree definitely. Ephraim says only GMS says that of the Eskimos. I think you're right, but I think there's some other offshoots who agree with him about that. I think there's... go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
You're saying there's other groups, though, that you know of?
Well, there's a brother that was in Sakari, I think, that his pops may have been Eskimo.
Oh, okay.
You call him Gad. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, an Inuit. Yeah, I do think there's... I know GMS was like the pioneers of that, it seems like, maybe. But I think there's definitely more than just GMS that says it. You got to remember how many small groups there are these days. Oh, literally every time you turn around, there's a new group now.
Before I know you got to go. Did you see that guy? I forgot the name of his channel. There's a guy that says he's King David. Now, I'm not making fun of people who are obese. He's morbidly obese.
I've met 3 King Davids, but I haven't met an obese one yet, so I haven't seen this one.
You have got to see this video. This guy's obese. He has a colostomy bag in his stomach. And on Thanksgiving, they tried to rename Thanksgiving Yahushua Day. And they're eating ham soaked in Coca-Cola for 2 days. Lots of pork. I'm talking, yo, it's a straight... I'll put the link in your...
You're saying a guy that's claimed to be King David is eating pork and trying to name Thanksgiving Yahweh Day.
Yes.
Bane Mandler says, I saw that guy. You have someone confirming what you're saying. I did. What is, what?
I'm going to put it in your DM. When you do this show, people are going to be like, what in the world is going on here?
The last days.
Like, he says we can't keep the law, so he can eat pork or eat whatever he wants, and, this, that, and the other. And then they thank God and Yahweh Shai for eating pork.
Well, I'm actually okay with that as a New Covenant Christian.
No, I understand that. You're a Christian, but this guy is saying he's an Israelite.
Yeah. I don't think David ever ate pork. Yeah. And I don't think...
Or had a poop bag.
Yeah, and I don't think Jesus did, and I bet Paul didn't either. He renamed Thanksgiving.
Rap the news?
Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. He was, I'm gonna leave it alone. But yeah, he would say he had kind of like the same way. He's kind of like this guy. I forgot. The guy literally calls himself KD, King David. In my opinion, like Alazar said, I think his wife has life insurance on him because the food she's cooking for him is very unhealthy, probably undigestible, and he already has a colostomy bag. So it's like, what's going on here?
So, oh man, this is wild. It says he's from the Lion's Den. All of them are terrible debaters. People.
Yeah, this guy's like obsessed with me. Sir, go get a woman, please. You're doing too much.
Apparently, people know who he is. Well, okay, fascinating. Yeah, that's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll figure out a debate topic or some other stuff, and let me know if you want me to come on your channel. I don't mind doing a hot seat type thing or whatever. I don't have to. Have I'll go wherever.
Yeah. Listen, we'll. I hope. I don't know why they blocked you. You didn't say anything. I went back and I'm like, Vocab was here. They're like, yo, Vocab. Someone hit me up and was like, yo, Vocab was in the chat. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, somebody blocked him. I'm like, what? I'm like, did he say anything? They were like, no, all he said was hello or something. So, Torah Kinghts, y'all got to stop that.
Might have been under your last video. I put the link because I wasn't sure if you had it and stuff. So maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know. But I never did nothing wild. I know that.
Yeah, I know.
Rap the news. He claimed to be King David too. Is that what you're saying?
No. He had some more false doctrines and he had followers, which is really surprising. It seems like you claim you're an Israelite, you come up with a bunch of false teachings, and you just get followers. It's like they're waiting for false teachers to come out. That's what I'm saying. I do agree with the Hebrew Israelite. Yeah, I do agree. The Hebrew Israelite movement is big because I think there's people who are Christians and got disillusioned with Christianity, but didn't want to leave Christianity totally. So they got like 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. Because some people still say, I heard a well-known camp leader, I'm sure you heard him too. He's like, we worship Christ. Like, worship. And I'm like, okay, well, my grandmother worships Christ and so does my mom. So these guys are, and he's a leader of a camp. So I'm thinking, well, I'm like, maybe Vocab getting on these guys isn't such a bad thing because it's just trying to get them back in the church, which it seems like they're trying to get back into anyways.
Yeah, well, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they need to go back to church. If they're going to teach Christian doctrine, just go back to church. Like there's no, listen, I'm not being hostile towards Christianity. I get it. When people say Jesus is God, he's not my God, but to Christians, that's their God. I'm like, I'm not going to argue with Christians about their God. I'm not going to argue with Hindus. I get it. I'm saying when you say you're an Israelite and you're saying we worship Christ, sorry, you need to get back in the church. That's where you belong. Like, so when Vocab's getting on you guys, all he's saying is, yo, don't half step, 10 toes down, get back in the church.
I mean,
what's the one guy's name? Lahab.
Who? Lahab. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. It's like, look, if you're going to say you hold to the New Testament, then hold to the New Testament. If you notice, I don't go as much after Tanakh only Israelites. I mean, I'll talk to them and stuff. Don't get me wrong. But it's more people who like, hey, look, I hold the New Testament and then just twist it all up and teach some other thing. That's sort of especially problematic in my view. It's like, don't say you hold the New Testament and then say you kick out Paul and this one has errors, and this one's false, and Jesus isn't God, and he's not born of a virgin, and all these kinds of things. It's like, how's that holding to the New Testament? Stop playing around with it. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. But let's talk again, man. We had a lot of interesting comments today.
Yes.
Had a lot of interesting comments today, and we could figure out some debate or something like that. And hit me up. You got my information.
Yes. I mean, we can do Isaiah 53. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, thanks for coming
I don't
on.
believe in man, but I'll read.
Sometime I want to talk to the other Torah Knights because I don't even know who's in the current squad.
Oh yeah. Devion, Jeremiah, those are the active ones. We have other people, but they really don't debate or teach or. But yeah. Actually, I should have brought them, I guess, but I didn't know if you wanted just a one-on-one.
Maybe in the future.
Okay, yeah.
But all right, man, you have a beautiful night, sir.
All right, you too. Shout out to the chat. Thank you, Vocab Alone. Shout out to Orthodox more, and shout out to the whole house of Israel, except for the Israelites who hate the Torah Knights. We'll see you in the wilderness, Ezekiel 20, Brick City.
No doubt. God bless, man. You have a good one. Right. Hey, everyone, come check out tomorrow's program. Tomorrow, Friday, I'm supposed to be on God Logic. I'm supposed to be on with God Logic over there discussing things related to Islam. So check out God Logic channel. Hopefully we'll be able to do that and go live. Thank you guys, everybody, for what you did tonight. Much love. And thank you for the whole stuff in November. Thank you, D-New, and all the mods for putting it together and making it happen. The November stuff for the birthday enabled us to get new books and resources and was one of the best months we've had as far as support, probably in like 3 years. And so it was a great thing that I really appreciate. So much love, y'all. God bless. Peace out. Talk to you later.